The new United States administration marks a significant change in the global geopolitical order. The new leader has made it clear that he intends to impose American interests through military force, although he does not wish to maintain the role of global guardian. This stance indicates that allies will need to develop their own defense capabilities. Changes in American foreign policy signal the end of the order established after World War II. Instead of strengthening lasting ties, the new administration proposes a different dynamic, seeking to exploit instabilities to take advantage of opportunities that arise along the way. A German diplomatic document assesses that the new American government could cause significant ruptures and potentially affect fundamental democratic principles. In this context of uncertainty, China is already moving to occupy the spaces left by the United States. Between January and November of the previous year, Chinese investments in foreign countries exceeded $128 billion, representing an 11% growth compared to 2023. The new American foreign policy appears to be quite simplified, with its main focus only on the relationship with China. Other international themes lost priority, except migration issues, which remain relevant even for Brazil. In relation to international conflicts, the new American administration presents a peculiar stance. Regarding the situation in Gaza, there are indications of difficulties in advancing the next phases of the peace agreement. As for the conflict in Ukraine, there is the possibility of a freezing of the current situation, which would favor certain strategic positions. In the economic sphere, the scenario is marked by great unpredictability. Companies and investors face difficulties in making decisions due to uncertainty about how new mechanisms will affect price formation. One of the first economic measures focused on the energy issue, declaring a state of emergency to increase oil production. The new government faces a significant dilemma. It needs to balance a speech that pleases its electoral base with the need to combat inflation, especially considering that it begins its term with low approval ratings. World experience shows that disruptive speeches tend to be more effective in the opposition than in the government. The dance of world powers takes on new contours every day, with strategic movements that resemble a complex game of Go, where each piece positioned can completely change the board. While the United States redefines its stance, other countries begin to fill the empty spaces, creating new spheres of influence. In the heart of Europe, nations that for decades relied on American protection now find themselves forced into a silent arms race. Military budgets previously considered adequate are undergoing urgent revisions. It's like watching a group of teenagers who suddenly have to learn to fend for themselves on the global playground. In capitals around the world, emergency meetings have become routine. Diplomats and strategists work tirelessly to understand and adapt to the new reality. Old, once rock-solid alliances begin to show cracks, while unlikely new partnerships blossom in the shadows of uncertainty. The defense sector is experiencing a silent revolution. Industries that maintained stable production for years now find themselves facing urgent orders. Military research laboratories, previously operating at a regular pace, accelerate their projects as if they were in times of war. On global stock exchanges, every statement from the new American administration causes ripples of impact. Investors, accustomed to a certain predictability in international relations, now need to develop new strategies to navigate increasingly turbulent waters. The language of diplomacy is also undergoing a radical transformation. The traditional diplomatess, with its nuances and subtleties, gives way to more direct and, at times, disconcerting communication. It is as if decades of diplomatic protocol are being rewritten in real time. Think tanks and research centers work in overdrive, trying to anticipate the next moves in this new global chess game. Analyses are redone daily, while scenarios previously considered unlikely gain new relevance in geopolitical risk reports. In the field of military technology, the race for supremacy gains new momentum. Nations that were previously content with being consumers of military technology are now investing heavily in their own development, fearing that old guarantees of supply may no longer exist. Seaports, traditionally thermometers of global trade, are beginning to feel the first impacts of new protectionist policies. Trade routes established decades ago are being rethought, while new alternatives are explored with increasing urgency. The very nature of global power appears to be in flux. If influence was previously measured mainly in economic and diplomatic terms, now military power is once again gaining prominence as a fundamental measure of national strength. It is as if the world is returning to an era that many thought was behind us. And as these seismic shifts continue to reverberate through the international system, a new reality begins to take shape. The era of predictability in international relations appears to have come to an end, giving way to a period where adaptability and strength become the main currencies of survival. In the gilded halls of the White House, words echo like distant thunder, reverberating through the world's capitals. Three seemingly simple statements draw a new map of global power, one about Ukraine, another about Russia, and a third about Gaza. Every sentence, every word, carries the weight of decisions that will affect millions of lives. Like a chess player moving his pieces with deliberate precision, the new American administration reveals its strategy for global conflicts. The international chessboard reshuffles, with each move calculated to maximize American influence while minimizing its direct involvement. In Gaza, the air is thick with unfulfilled expectations. The peace agreement, divided into three phases like a three-act drama, now appears more fragile than ever. The first act may have been a success, but the second and third remain shrouded in shadows of uncertainty. Israel, as a cautious actor, keeps its cards close to its chest, reserving the right not to proceed with negotiations. The war in Ukraine takes on new contours under this pragmatic perspective. Rumors of a possible freezing of the conflict are circulating through diplomatic corridors. It is as if time is about to stop on the front lines, crystallizing the current situation into a permanent impasse that, curiously, seems to favor certain interests. Behind the scenes, a subtle diplomatic dance unfolds. The preference for tariffs over sanctions emerges as a new tool of power, redrawing the lines of global economic influence. It's a paradigm shift that has financial markets holding their breath. The statistics are brutal: 800,000 dead and wounded in Russia, a number that hangs like a ghost over the negotiating tables. Each number represents a life, a family, a story interrupted, but in high politics, even these tragedies become negotiation pieces. Europe watches closely, trying to balance its own ambitions with new realities. The possibility of creating a protective umbrella for Ukraine appears as an intermediate solution, a bridge between the desire to protect and the need not to provoke. Negotiations unfold like a complex ballet, where each movement must be precisely calibrated. On the one hand, Ukraine seeks security guarantees. On the other, Russia seeks safeguards against an expansion that it sees as threatening. The seemingly contradictory presidential statements reveal a more subtle strategy, putting pressure on different sides at different times, creating an environment of calculated uncertainty that forces all actors to reconsider their positions. International analysts work tirelessly to decipher every nuance, every subtext of these statements. It's like trying to read a book whose pages are being rewritten as you read, with the meaning changing with each new interpretation. And as the world carefully watches this new chapter of history unfold, one question remains in the air: how will these changes in American foreign policy affect the global economy and the cost of living for ordinary citizens. At the heart of this global transformation, a new economic reality begins to take shape. Like a slowly approaching storm, unpredictability hangs over markets and entrepreneurs, forcing them to navigate increasingly turbulent waters. The business community, from small traders to large industrialists, finds itself in an unprecedented decision-making limbo. Decisions that once followed predictable patterns now require a new way of thinking, an adaptability that many still struggle to develop. A fascinating contrast emerges between the business cultures of Brazil and the United States. While Brazilians, forged in the flames of countless economic crises, have developed a sixth sense to anticipate and adapt to sudden changes, Americans find themselves forced to learn this art of economic survival. The energy issue appears as the spearhead of this new policy. The declaration of a state of energy emergency is not just an administrative measure, it is a clear sign of a fundamental shift in how the United States intends to manage its natural resources. The oil market, sensitive as ever, responded immediately. Prices fluctuate, reflecting not only the realities of supply and demand, but also expectations and fears about the future of American energy policy. For the average American citizen, these changes translate into concrete concerns about the cost of living. Inflation, a specter that has not haunted American homes with such intensity for a long time, is once again a topic of conversation at the dinner table. Government agencies are given a new mission: to focus on the cost of living for the average American. It is a subtle but profound change in the way the federal government interacts with the economy, prioritizing the immediate impact on the lives of ordinary citizens. In corporate meeting rooms, executives debate strategies to navigate this new environment. Investment, expansion, and hiring decisions are rethought in light of this new reality where predictability has given way to constant uncertainty. The energy sector, in particular, is experiencing a moment of radical transformation. The pledge to increase oil production is not just an economic issue, it is a declaration of energy independence that echoes through global markets. Negotiations on climate change gain new complexity. The energy issue, previously seen mainly from an environmental perspective, is now framed as a crucial element of American national security. And as international observers try to decipher the impact of these changes on global climate agreements, a new question emerges: how will this renewed focus on energy as a national security issue affect international trade relations and established strategic alliances?